Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the second day of Seaweed Days, hosted by Cascadia Seaweed. And we are very pleased to welcome one of our gold sponsors, MNP, and their team to take us through a business lunch, one of the 3 business lunches that we're hosting during Seaweed Days. However, we've got people joining us from all over the world, so it may not be lunch for everyone, but we're so glad that you've taken time out of your busy schedules to join us today. Thank you so much. A little bit about Zoom etiquette that will run for this particular session because we have so many participants chiming in. We'll just recommend that you keep your cameras and your microphones off, or your cameras off and your microphones muted during the session. But if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to message them directly to me as the host of the session, and I will get to as many questions as we possibly can at the end of the presentation. Now, I can't say enough about MNP and how they have come on board to support not only the festival, but growing the whole seaweed sector. And that's really the wonderful part about having them as sponsors. They're more than a sponsor. They're a partner and a collaborator in our business, but also in growing the whole industry in the sector. So I'm very pleased to welcome the team from MNP. Over to you.
Thank you for having us. I'll wait for the rest of us to pop our cameras on and get the slideshow going. I was excited how many people were tuning in from around the world. I felt like this was the closest to international travel I'm going to get in a very long time. So that just speaks to the fact how interesting and leading edge this is, that we have so many people from around the world tuning in, trying to learn about the business, seeing what BC is doing. And we're super happy to be sponsoring this from the business side. A little bit about MNP. I'm sure everyone knows the big 4 large accounting firms. We're right beneath them. So we like to market ourselves as the largest Canadian-owned accounting firm. We're made up of a lot of entrepreneurs. One of the things I like about working at MNP is everyone has this entrepreneurial spirit, wanting to engage in business, better business, learn about business. Our grassroots started in farming in Brandon, Manitoba. So we love farming and just growing. So that's why when this seaweed stuff came across our desk, it was just a very natural fit. It was new, it was innovative, it just ticked all the boxes. So we jumped all in and we built a team around this. We're spending a lot of our time learning about this, just as you are, being part of associations. Oh yeah, there was an interesting map that just kind of showed the presence of MNP across all of Canada. So we work and live in the business communities. You will notice that we're not just concentrated in the big cities. We go broad, we go big. You'll find us anywhere. And today, together with myself, I'm Eva Tone. I'm working from the Langley office today. I split my time between Langley and North Vancouver. The team that joins me is Luke Biles from Victoria and Dallas McCorkadale from Nanaimo. And we each have a little section that we're going to be presenting on and sharing. So we hope you'll enjoy it. One of the people that wasn't listed on that slide that I feel like should get some credit here is Peter Van Doggen. He's someone that helped organize a lot of this and has created a lot of connections for us, and is the silent person behind all these slides. He's making us look good. So thanks, Peter. Thought you could get away with not putting your photo on there, right?
Thank you very much, Eva, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. As Eva just said, my name is Luke Biles, and I work out of our Victoria office. I'm very excited to be participating in the seaweed industry and to be here today to talk to you kind of about the things that you want to think about and consider before starting a seaweed business. A lot of this stuff can be taken and applied to any business, but there is definitely a focus on companies that operate within this industry. And this isn't necessarily an agenda, what we're looking at here. This is more like the goals that we want to implant in your head as you're thinking about building your business. So it's not going to be a step-by-step clarifying your vision now into the opportunity. It's just kind of the overall concept here that we're trying to get across that we should be focusing on. So quick introduction about seaweed and the industry. It's pretty new here in Canada. It's not necessarily new across the globe, but there's opportunities here in Canada to get in on the ground floor. I should also mention, I said this can be applied to many businesses. If you want to be learning about the seaweed industry very particularly, I highly suggest signing up for the Seaweed 101 courses tomorrow and the next day. I'll be there as well. Okay, back to here. The Canadian seaweed industry is in its infancy, so it's new, but it's not new across the world. Things are going to change from the way that they are today. We're using this product in certain formats and certain varieties, and that's going to evolve and change as the industry here grows and as more people get involved. So, we want to think about how do we build our business for today, but also how do we build it for the future. That's always an important part of the plan. So, currently it's in food and agriculture, it's in sustainable packaging. A big conversation right now is on methane reduction, which I think is super interesting. And imagine what else is in there. Imagine what other proprietary uses that this product or this biological asset can bring to us. What are you going to bring to the table long term? We want to instill that, yes, we can, this is a business around agriculture, around farming, around sustainability, and all of those other things that potentially crop up around it to make it more than just a business. But at the end of the day, the basics of good business still apply. And this is what I try and do in every aspect of my life, is set myself up for success. I know my weaknesses, so I try and get ahead of those. And I plan, that's the other thing. So we want to have a plan and strategize. And that plan can be broken down into a bunch of different, you can have your 1 year plan, your 3 year, your 5 year, your 10 year, et cetera. We want to make sure that we're working with the right people and the right partners. We don't have all of the skills. I'm a CPA, sorry. I'm a great at accounting and business advisory, but I don't know how to process seaweed or to get it in a stable shelf life format, things like that. So, it's a team effort, and we have to recognize that we can't do it all on our own. So selecting the right people and partners is extremely important. And then focusing on what's important. There's that old saying about, what is it? Focus on the dollars and the pennies will take care of themselves, or maybe it's the opposite. I'm not really sure. But we've got to focus on what's important at each individual stage here. And what's important in a seaweed business is the product in a lot of ways. It's the quality and the consistency of what we're selling to our customers, because that's what they expect. They always expect if they're going to buy something, they're going to get the same thing every time. So we want to go into this business with a mind on that. And then, of course, like anything new, anything untested, there are risks involved, and hopefully, rewards that are worth all those risks at the end of the rainbow, so to say. So again, setting clear goals is important to mitigate your risk. That's what we consider a lot of the time as accountants and business advisors is, we can't avoid risk, but we can mitigate it as much as possible. We want to monitor our progress along those goals and along our timeline, because an amendment of one of our plans may impact more of our plans down the road. And then the last thing is we want to be ready to adapt. We want to be ready to pivot. This kind of ties in with the next part over here about parallel industries and the cannabis industry. I know a lot of folks that jumped into this 3 years ago, and their business today is not what it started as at all, because the marketplace required them to pivot. And that was, due to regulation change, due to market changes. There's a lot of reasons why you might need to change. So you need to have that level of flexibility built in, or at least some sort of escape plan. But then we move on to the next one of drawing parallels from other industries. Seaweed mariculture in itself, like we said, it's not new to the world, but it's pretty new here in Canada. And as a result, we don't necessarily have all the same supports set up for it that we would for industries that you think would be adjacent, okay? So like agriculture is a very subsidized industry here in Canada and across the world for the most part. We don't have the same level of subsidization in mariculture. There are these things called agri-stability, agri-invest that currently I don't believe a seaweed company could avail of. But for issues that we come up that come up against as we move forward in building our business and starting our business, we can still look to these industries to see what solutions that they implemented. Food and beverage is another one. I mean, if you think about the food and beverage industry, that's where the agriculture pours into. We've got things to consider like our shelf life, like getting our product into a stable format. I was chatting with Rob from Cascadia yesterday, and he mentioned to me that it's 24 hours that you have from when you get your product out of the water that you need to get it in and processed and stable, or else you can lose it. So these are very similar issues that they experience in food and beverage. So what are they doing to counteract that is an excellent question. The forestry parallels are primarily around, natural resources is clear, but tenure. So if you're going to grow something in the ocean, you need the government and a First Nation to sign off on that. They need the same for harvesting wood products in the forest. And then cannabis, growing a crop. We're not exactly sure. It's a very innovative market right now. We're not exactly sure what the final format of cannabis is going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Same as we don't know about seaweed. We're not sure whether this is going to become a part of everybody's everyday life, or if it's going to live on the fringes, or where it fits into our society as a whole here in Canada and North America. So, pardon me, we can look at these other industries for answers to our questions in a lot of ways. Right here, Eva, I think you need to mute your phone.
Oh.
All good. This here is a tool that we use at MNP, and we actually give this to our clients and many first-time business owners and entrepreneurs. It's called the Balanced Scorecard, and it kind of just it's a useful tool to guide like holistic conversation or internal discussion about your business. So we start at the top here with vision, and we're kind of covering this. So where are we going? What type of business do we want to build? And what does success look like to us? So we answer those questions, and we're basically painting the picture of our business. Our customers, which markets do we want to pursue, and who are our potential customers? That informs so much about who we are as a business and what our approach to the market is. From an operations perspective, what is our model? Where do we fit in on the supply chain? Where do we anticipate for there to be bottlenecks, limitations, and how can we use technology to improve our business? On the people side, what human resources do we need? Are they willing, able, and motivated? And in an industry like this, you want passionate people to be there. I would imagine that's fairly easy to get in this industry, right? People who are very passionate about this specific thing. And then instilling a culture of constant improvement is also extremely important. So if we start with that on day one, build good behaviors, build good habits, things like that, it'll pay off long term. On the money side, we've got to make money. We've got to keep our money. We've got to manage our money, and we've got to make our money work for us. So how does that work with finance? And then an exit. What is our long-term plan here? And so if we jump over to this is the seaweed value or supply chain. And we basically, if you're looking at this market going, I want to jump in, but I don't know what to do. Well, this is what you have to answer yourself. You've got to take a look at this and you've got to figure out where you want to fit in. Do you want to be over in supply where you're cultivating the seaweed, or do you want to be even further before that where you're breeding it and maybe you're crossing genetics and coming up with new hybrids and things like that? Or the other option on that side is wild harvesting, literally going into the ocean and pulling it out and going from there, which is fairly popular here on Vancouver Island. Or do you want to be in processing? Do you want to be the guys that, you know, go pick it up, pop it in a reefer van, bring it to your place, rinse it down, and then freeze it, grinding it, flaking it, turning it into, you know, separating it from its individual components that can then be used in all sorts of different applications? Or do you want to be on the end use? Do you want to make a final product using the seaweed inputs? Anything from cosmetics, topical lotions. I really like plastic packaging. I'm all about using. That's what I hope we get into. Or do you want to vertically integrate? And the reason why somebody might vertically integrate it is because there tends to be economies of scale there, and you're essentially selling to yourself. So you know, not so much negotiation outside. It provides, you know, but you need a lot more money, generally, a lot more resources to start up something that's vertically integrated. If you think about, you know, I need to build the cultivation platform out on the water. Well, then I also need a processing facility, and then I need all of the regulations and whatnot that allow me to sell a food product. So something to consider. We don't have to be directly involved in the industry like that, though. If you're an entrepreneur out there and you have a construction company or some type of materials supply, or you're in technology, you can go back to kind of the gold rush era and think about the miners and merchants. And what opportunities are there for those of us on the periphery of an industry? And it's bringing our skills and our skill sets in and allowing it to help this industry grow. So, you know, different tools. If you sell tools to a mussel farm, well, maybe these can be modified to go into a seaweed cultivation platform. Technology, labor, and materials, and then service providers. Real estate in here as well, banking, financing. There's many other options here, but there are opportunities that present themselves. So we're kind of back to the vision here now about who do we want to be? And these are important questions to think about before you even get started, before there's pen to paper, because the answers to these questions are going to inform the solutions and the structure that we develop later on. So do we want to be small, medium, or large? If we have a pocket full of resources, we could jump in and be medium or large. Or and resources could be people resources, right? Friends and family, that one rich uncle you've got, etc. So do we want to start small and scale up, organic growth? Do we want to go out and, hop a plane to Vancouver and Toronto and start raising funds from the guys and girls downtown and jump in deep, get vertically integrated, go from there? That's our starting point. And then who do we want to be later on? Because we can start small and very quickly become a mid-sized enterprise. Or we can start small and proof of concept our business and then go out and raise money. Once we're revenue positive, once we have a product, et cetera, et cetera. And this will inform a lot of decisions later on. Then, what do we want to do in the space? Again, this goes back to the value chain, the supply chain. Are we going to culture our own? Are we going to harvest wild seaweed? Are we going to be a biomass play? Are we just going to pump out whatever product, whatever cultivar is in demand for the cheapest cost and the potentially highest revenue? Is that all that we're doing? Or are we going to specialize and find that one cultivar that really sings to us and our customers and only grow that one? Maybe it's tougher to grow and you need a little bit more focus there, a little bit more technology or something. Are we going to be the processor value add? Are we going to be vertically integrated? And then there's this other weird question on the end, which are, you could be an entrepreneur sitting at home, and this could be the third business in 5 years for you. But that looks really different than somebody who's trying to start a family business. Somebody who's trying to start something that can sustain themselves for the next 30 years, and maybe then they sell it off. Or for somebody who wants to flip it in 3 years and have somebody come in and buy it. The other side is it's called ESG, and it's this environmental, social, and corporate governance thing. And I think Seaweed straddles the line of this beautifully. This is becoming more and more important in society today. You can go to your bank or your investment broker, and you can say, I only want to invest in ethical companies. And they will go out and they will look for companies that have these ESG requirements. They actually report on them in their audited financial statements, and auditors like us have to issue an audit opinion on the, say, the environmental statements that they've made and such like that. Seaweed being something that operates in an underwater environment where, if we really think about it, the world depends on our oceans in a lot of ways. So there's a really nice alignment there to strategize your ESG, with your business. And then lastly, what's our exit strategy? Do we want to sell it? Do we want to pass it on to our kids, et cetera, et cetera? So these are the things that we need to think about. We need to put these on paper and start making this list. The next one here is, deciding what market position we're in. And we kind of touched on this a little bit before. There's a lot of different varieties of aquatic plants. And I'm not just going to say seaweed because I'm sure there's a lot more than just seaweed that's attractive here. So identifying, what can we do? What do we want to do? What market we want to operate in? And trying to do the research, and it can be difficult as solos, as small groups, but trying to do the research to figure out, well, who are my customers? Because if you're cultivating, your customer isn't the guy in the grocery store. Your customer is actually the person who purchases it from you and processes it into a product that then lives at a grocery store. So how many of those are there out there is the question. We know there's 7 billion people, and maybe 10 million of them are actively involved in purchasing seaweed, but how many intermediaries are there buying bulk seaweed? And then which of those are actually accessible to you? There might be 100 of them in the world or 1,000 of them in the world, but there's only 100 in North America. This drives kind of what's our maximum, what's our potential, and how much market share of that can we potentially grab or step into. It gives you an idea of how big you can get, of what to expect, because it can be really difficult. And I'll try not to do this too much, but drawing parallels from the cannabis industry, just because it's so new and it's so controversial, and there's always something funny coming out. There's so many folks out there that went and got cultivation licenses and didn't think about, who am I selling to? They just wanted to grow. And now they're sitting on a frozen product 6 months later that has gone down in value because the prices, it's going to commoditize and prices will go down. So, that's why we want to ask these questions. And there's hundreds of those across Canada. So that's why we want to ask these questions. That's why we want to understand this before we go in. We're not selling to the guy that buys it at the grocery store. We're probably not selling to the farmer who puts it in his feed. If we're cultivating, we're probably selling to somebody who's processing. And how do we develop those relationships is the other thing. You've kind of, I don't know, I think there's a knack to it. There's a knack to going out and meeting, getting in with those people. And maybe that's a different team member. Maybe that's a different part of your team who handles that. Maybe that's not your skill set. You're the grower. You're the amazing mariculture guy. But you need to surround yourself with the people that are able to flesh out that picture. From an operations perspective, there's a lot of things to consider here. So we've got, I'm just checking my time. We've got access to tenure. This is interesting. We mentioned this before, but this can take a long time. if you're applying for, a fresh greenfield, it can take 2 years plus to get it. So where does that put you in your business plan, right? If we had plans to be revenue positive in year 1, well, we might not be anymore, or we might have to find a different avenue. And that avenue could be finding an existing tenure and either doing some sort of partnership or perhaps purchasing it. But it's important to note that this can take time, and it can take money and resources of your staff and your own time as well. And then there's the Indigenous engagement part. And we chatted with some folks just to confirm some of this, but 90% of the waters surrounding BC are part of some Indigenous land. And if you are going to apply for tenureship or try to work the water on that land, you need the sign off of the First Nation that is responsible for that land. There's other areas too, though. There's a value alignment here where Seaweed and this mariculture industry has to respect the land and the water. We have to be sustainable because it's one thing to pour a pesticide on your 1 acre farm. It's another thing to dump it into an ocean where it just goes everywhere, right? It's not mitigated. But yeah, so getting involved with the Indigenous and First Nations of Canada and BC is going to be an important part of this industry. But they're motivated as well. They're motivated to participate. Many First Nations are going through economic diversification right now, where they're trying to spread out what their nation is focused on and how it generates income for everyone. And these things present employment opportunities for First Nations people who live, near the places where these activities happen. And then there's skills training in there as well for them. So it's a beneficial relationship, and it's also a requirement. So there's also there's a duty to consult as well with getting your tenure, where you are required to consult with the First Nations over things like your environmental assessment and things like that. The next really important part is sourcing the seed stock. So if you're going to cultivate or grow this stuff, where are you going to start? Are you going to dive into the ocean and figure it out yourself, or are you going to find a supplier? And then the important thing is your agreement with the supplier long term? Is it a healthy relationship that you can maintain? Or is it just something to fill in the blank until you can get your own breeding program going? Again, I bring it back to the point, though, product consistency is key. When you go to buy a Pepsi, you expect a Pepsi. Nobody drinks Pepsi out here. Everybody drinks Coke. I'm an East Coaster. I like a bit of Pepsi. But so consistency is probably going to be your number one, and yield, obviously. And then the equipment, okay? So obviously there's a capital cost to all of this. What do we need as equipment? Do we lease it? Do we buy it? Do we rent it? How are we going to acquire it? Where does the money come from? And then the one piece that everybody always forgets, how do we train people to use it? Because that can actually be a significant portion of that piece of equipment's cost. My computer is just slowly going over to the next slide. There we go. We also want to envision our team. So you've got me, Luke, I'm the accountant, and we've got you, the Seaweed entrepreneur. Well, who else do we need? Oh boy, we need leaders. We need business leaders, and we need, you don't necessarily need your HR guy or your CFO right away, but you'll need them to grow into them, and you'll need 1 or 2 leaders to support you. And these are folks that understand the vision of the company. They're able to set a clear direction. These are basically the qualities of effective leaders, right? They have experience, whether that's experience in this industry or experience, building a business. And they're not afraid to get their hands dirty. The best leaders are the ones that aren't afraid to get in there and go see things and be that guy who's on site, be that person who's on site. Then there's your advisors. These are internal and external. They're your lawyers, they're your accountants, but in this case, they're also probably scientific or specific to mariculture, right? So who's advising you if you're just dipping your toes into this industry? Who is helping you do that and guiding you to make sure you don't make silly mistakes that could be avoided? For these folks, we want them to be invested. We want them to be passionate. We don't want somebody who's necessarily just doing it for the paycheck at the end of the day, because we need to trust them. Marketing and sales is the next piece, because unfortunately we have to make money. So these are folks, they need to be knowledgeable about the industry, knowledgeable about the products, and of course, knowledgeable about the customers. They got to walk and talk the industry. They too have to be passionate, and they've got to be goals oriented. You've got to set a target so that they can chase it. And then there's your finance, HR, and administration. These are the people that keep your organization together. They're the backbone. They keep the wheels from falling off, and they participate all across the board. This is your accounting group. This is your HR group. This is your office staff, your receptionists, all of those people. And then the production team. So these could be supervisors to, farmhands. They need to work together as a team. They need you to provide adequate training. And if you're lucky, some of them will have some experience too. And then we need to set some expectations around, dollars, really. So any business has what's called fixed costs. This is your salaries for folks that just earn a salary, your rent, your insurance, the things that just simply exist no matter what we're doing. So we need to make a minimum amount of money to overcome that fixed cost before we can make any profit. Cost of production at the end of the day is super important too. We want to be controlling our costs. When we bring in our first harvest, we want it to be the highest yield as possible for the lowest cost as possible, so that when we sell that for $1, we're making more money on each sale. And I love that quote about a small leak will sink a great ship. These are things that we can pay attention to and take care of now so that we're successful going forward. Then there's always feasibility. Is our plan going to work? Can we get the market share? Do our customers exist? Is there demand for our product? And we can, we generally look at this by doing some sort of budget or even a break-even analysis. What is the minimum for me to achieve before this thing is sustainable? And is that possible? And then financing, crowdsourcing your success. Friends and family, they've got more money than you think they do. And they're more interested in supporting you as an entrepreneur and as a business owner than you might think. Then there's investors, and then there's banks. Banks can give debt, but they generally don't buy stock. Investors buy stock, but they want the best deal. So there's a lot of different people's motivations here that you need to consider when moving forward. Up until this point, we've been pretty high level, and we're going to bring it a little bit closer to the weeds right now. Where we talked very briefly about structure. And this structure can mean a lot of things. It can mean the hierarchy of the people in the organization. It can mean the different individual corporations that make up a group, things like that. But these are kind of our options. We've got sole proprietor, and there's not many that probably fall in this category. This is you as an individual, and every penny you make or lose arrives on your personal tax return, and it's taxed at that time. One of the things about a sole proprietor is they generally don't get access to a lot of the great things that Canada has to offer to businesses. Things like grants, things like scientific research and experimental development credits. That's 35% of the salaries that you pay that you wouldn't be able to access if you're a sole proprietor. Then there's the corporation. There's standard corporations. There's a BC Corp, a federal corp. Lots of questions for accountants and lawyers. Interestingly enough, though, there's these other two types of corporations called benefits corps and then B corps, which are a little bit different. So a benefit corporation it's built into the bylaws and the articles of that corporation what benefit they're bringing to society. And again, this ties back to that ESG stuff we talked about, where investors are interested now in earning money and benefiting the world. So there's kind of marketing benefits with a financing capacity there with respect to incorporating as a benefits corp. But of course, you've got to follow through. That's the important piece. And then a B Corp, you don't have to have incorporated as a benefits corp. You could be a normal corporation. And a B Corp is more like a certification that you get. And Eva's pretty good at those, apparently. But that's very similar. You make a statement about what you're bringing to the table to the world, and hopefully your customers, your investors, and other stakeholders will pay attention to that, and it'll be more attractive to them. There's also general and limited partnerships, as well as joint ventures, which are just kind of different. And you might not start like this, but maybe you do. But through your path as an entrepreneur in this industry, you'll probably have them. So if you start your mariculture and you start working with a First Nation, you might end up in a partnership with them, or in a joint venture, or with your processor. If you're the cultivator and they're the processor, well, maybe you've got a joint venture relationship or a partnership relationship that allows you to share more resources rather than just simply sell them your product or pay them to harvest or process your product. And then I just had best practices here because these are some common things that we kind of see people miss, or they trip people up along the way. And we want to know where we're going before taking the first step. How many people do I know went out and incorporated a company online before they asked any of these questions? I know a lot of them is the answer. We want to utilize our professionals and experts, people like accountants and lawyers who have seen a billion corporations and incorporated them all. We're pretty good at that. And we know how to structure a corporation to plan for the future, for the specific tax things that can happen, for new investors coming in. The $50 fee that you pay to incorporate a BC company online is not going to get you that. And it'll bite you it'll bite you later on down the road when you need to get us to reorganize it at a fairly high cost. So we want to, best foot forward, take these steps at the beginning. We don't want to take shortcuts unless we absolutely have to. And then we want to talk to an insurance broker, because insurance is a little wild right now and has been for about a year. And there can be a lot of surprises built into insurance, depending on, especially if you want to do something close to home. So those would be my best practices right there. And thankfully, I think that's the end of my time. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so proud to be here. I'm going to pass it over to Dallas, who's going to talk to you a little bit more.
Yeah, while he gets ready, I'll just summarize a couple things that this presentation is. It's tricky to speak to big business and small business all at the same time. And I think as an entrepreneur, sometimes you have to pivot, right? So Luke alluded to the cannabis industry and some of the things that happened in there. So that's where we feel like we can help with some of those insights, seeing where some of the things have gone wrong. Or where we've learned from it. And then I'm really excited for Dallas to share this part. I know this is an international audience, so I'm hoping this provides value as well, but Dallas is gonna really get into setting up your business now. So go for it, Dallas.
Thanks, Eva. Thank you everyone for coming. So Eva and Peter asked me to come today and talk about financial systems and setting yourself up. And so the question was, okay, well, what kind of audience are we dealing with here? Because that's going to sort of dictate the conversation. And they said, well, it's a new industry, so assume that most people are sort of new to business, or maybe they're sort of in their, they're small or medium-sized businesses. And I said, great, that's a very interesting topic to talk about, because you've got a big advantage at this point. There's a lot of things happening in the world of financial systems that are changing rapidly, and it's very easy to sort of move into a new system if you're early stages of your business. So how do we start talking about financial systems, and what exactly is the purpose of a good financial system? So I would say that what are the keys to a good financial system? First of all, is it up to date and accurate? If it's not accurate, it's not going to really be that much use to you. There's a tendency, especially among small businesses, that their financial systems and their financial records are just used to sort of tell the story in the past and comply with the CRA, and they're not actually using any of their financial information to benefit themselves, really, to be honest. So that's a key thing, is if you can't really use your financial information if it's not up to date and accurate. But once it is up to date and accurate, well, now you can actually start to get some relevant information out of it. You can start to look at different trends, look at different ratios. You can start to really dive in and dial in your business. And the next step, of course, is once you have accurate financial information, well, now you actually have something to base your forecasts on. You can base your budgeting on. You can actually start to figure out, okay, here's where I am today. Where am I going to be in a year? What do I think I can do? Can I afford that new boat? Can I afford to keep running this business for the next 2 years? What is feasible, and what can I do? So this is sort of the backbone of a good financial system. Now, I said that it's a good time to sort of start into building a financial system. And the reason I said that is because there's been a huge shift in the world of accounting over probably about the last 10 years, but it's really accelerated in the last 5 years. And that shift is called cloud accounting. So what is cloud accounting? Well, you can sort of define it as storing your financial information online in the cloud, instead of on a desktop or on a server in a basement somewhere, freeing your data from being housed locally. And so what does that look like, really? Well, there's actually not that there's two main providers that I talk to people when I talk about cloud accounting in the small business space. And that's a product called QuickBooks Online and another one called Xero. These are sort of the two main movers. Lots of people have heard of QuickBooks. Some people might have heard of Sage Accounting. That's not so much a cloud accounting software, so I won't talk about that one too much, but you might have heard of it as well. And so what it is instead of having your accounting software and your financial systems all sitting on your desktop by themselves, instead they're up and they're in the cloud. You pay a software subscription fee every month, just like your cell phone bill, and you get constantly up-to-date information that's accessible anywhere. And there's a lot of other benefits, and we're going to get into it. But right off the hop, I always like to talk as well about security, because sometimes people get a little antsy about being online. And so I always say, well, you use online banking. And even if you don't, your bank does. So everyone's already in the cloud with their financial information. They're just not really using it to their benefit. So what makes cloud accounting different? What makes it advantageous? The first thing I talk about is the access to machine learning and automation rules. So now you're dealing, because all of this information is stored in the cloud, the reality is that these software vendors like, Intuit and Sage and Xero, they have access to your data now, which is a good thing and a bad thing. If you're worried about them having access, maybe this isn't for you. But if you don't mind that they have access, anonymized access, what they're doing is they're gathering, millions of companies' data, and they're running it through computers to learn. And why are they doing that? So that they can then help you and provide a better product. So these computers are now analyzing invoices, analyzing bills. They're looking for trends. They're looking for fraud. They're looking for how to automate the posting and the sort of regular activity of your business. And it's making things much more efficient. And these are tools that would have never been available to small businesses and medium-sized businesses just 6-7 years ago. It wasn't a thing, but it's changing rapidly now. And this is now possible for small businesses to have access to these complicated tools. The next thing I talk about is the ability to collaborate with your advisors. Well, your accountant can log in now and see what you're seeing. Amazing. And finally, when we talk about sort of your accounting systems of Xero and QuickBooks Online, think of those like Mac and Windows. They're just your baseline. And then what you can do is you plug in specialized products into those two applications to provide sort of your specialized areas that you might need, whether that's payroll or payables or collections, whatever it might be. You plug in various other software into your sort of your hub, which might be QuickBooks Online, and everybody sort of does what they do best as a result. So I've got a few sort of some of the better known applications out there that people are using for cloud accounting and for their financial systems. These are all great solutions. Some of them are receipt capture, so you can go paperless in your office. You don't have to collect your receipts in a little baggie anymore or in a shoebox. It's all in the cloud. You take a picture, you throw your receipt in the garbage. Somebody might say, well, what if the CRA asks for it? Well, the CRA accepts digital receipts, so don't worry about that. WagePoint. WagePoint's a payroll program. It provides direct deposit to your employees, exceptionally easy to use for small businesses. Your employees get their own portal where they can log on. They can see their vacation, their pay stubs, their T4s. It's all in there. It's all done for you. These would all be manual processes where you had to hire somebody and print documents and mail things off. And it was a mess. You don't need to struggle like that anymore. RBC PayEdge, that's a payments provider. You can pay all of your vendors via EFT quite easily, not email transfer, which is horribly insecure, or checks, which is very inefficient and slow. There's inventory management software. It's sort of, you name it, there's somebody out there that is great at doing it and much better than your old accounting software would ever have done it, and it'll plug into your new accounting software in the cloud. And that's sort of the idea, is that everybody's good at something. And that's sort of the idea. What are the advantages? I'm just going to go quickly through this. I mean, it's efficiency, it's training, everything's on the cloud, it's very accessible. You can go watch YouTube videos now about all these different things. Your record storage, well, it's all on the cloud, easily accessible. Oftentimes clients are attaching now bills to each transaction, so that if you ever want to go back and say, hey, what was that transaction actually? Well, you can pull up the receipt right on your computer and look at it. And if you get audited by the CRA, well, you can print that off or PDF it and send it right off to the CRA. There's no need to go through folders from 5 years ago to try and find, you know, in your basement, an old receipt. Those days are gone. Multi-user access. Anybody can access it anywhere. You could be in Hawaii sitting on a beach and you can go through your financials on your phone. And they're accurate and they're up to date as of a second ago. Continuing availability of the accounting function. So no matter what, if one person leaves, you can easily add a new person. You're not trying to chase down, oh, you know, the accounting was stored on so-and-so's laptop, so we got to go and get them to send it to us, and that's going to be a pain. And finally, there's a lot of customization available, more than ever before with cloud, because there's all these different reporting applications that can plug into your accounting. So there's a million advantages. Next slide, click, there we go. What are the disadvantages? Because we should talk about disadvantages. You're internet reliant. Plain and simple, you need the internet to be able to go into the cloud. And finally, training. You need to be, I find that more often than not, training isn't a huge deal, but you need to be mindful of it and you need to understand that it's new. Oftentimes, if you're dealing with people who have been in the industry a long time, some of them are kind of long in the tooth and they've gotten used to old processes. And that's the reality, is that training takes time. So what's important to you? These are the things that you need to sort of consider and design your system around. And this is how you build a proper financial system, is you build into it, oh, I'm going to track these specific indicators. I'm going to include my budget in my system so that I can compare my budget to actual. I'm going to be able to track, because I keep up to date, how much cash am I burning if I'm a new business. There's so many great things you need to sort of build into the system to make it useful. So before I sort of finish up here, I'm just going to sort of quickly talk about, so how do you get started? Oh, I'm sold, I want this. How do I go about it? And there's really two ways to do it. So if you're a new business, it might be that you just sign up yourself and give it a go. And it's not really actually very hard when you're new and there's very low volume, you know every transaction yourself. You just sort of have to take it and give it a shot. And I've found that most people have no issues with that. If you're an existing business, well, that's when you might want to hire somebody to help you, basically, because it can.
I'm just going to be mindful of time here a little bit, because I know we're running a little bit over with our timeline here, and people are probably going to get ready to jump off.
So that's basically, and this is sort of the end of my my slides. So doing our best.
Well, I think high level, Dallas is in our firm. He helps businesses set up, whether he comes in during the process and helps you, or if he comes in from the beginning and helps with setup. So I wish I had more time for you, Dallas.
No,
but if
anybody
wants, more. If anybody wants more of Dallas, at the end, his contact information is going to be there. We know that there's a lot of people on the call that have run businesses, and this might be regular for them. There are a lot of nuances and differences in the way that we recommend setting up a GL, and there's a lot of differences in BC with certain taxes and stuff like that, and that's where Dallas shines. And if anyone has any specific questions on that, they can reach out to you. Any final words, Dallas, before I
think
yank it away from you?
Summed it up, Eva. That's exactly the case.
Keep the.
It's exciting stuff. Feel free to reach out.
Somebody's cracking a whip on Eva.
I am. I've been.
Somebody's behind her
for a while. So I'm going to make sure my section is fast too. In general, there's a lot of unique things about British Columbia and operating your business here, as well as Canada in general. And I'm just going to go through these very quickly at a high level. There's certain things available here to grow your business. One of them is what we call SHRED. It's scientific research and experimental development. We've worked with Seaweed companies and other businesses. And the main crux of this to see if you qualify or not is whether you have a lot of learning in your business. So if there's a lot of new things you're doing that's innovative, you're spending money, testing things, figuring things out. The Canadian government loves that. They love to invest in innovation, and they don't want people to be scared to spend money in that. So the one item I really wanted to highlight is the orange one. If you feel like you're going through technical design issues, you're failing, you're pivoting, you're recalibrating your whole business, like, oh, this is wrong, document all that. The government gives grants and subsidies for that, and come see the next person on the slide. This just shows the depth of our team. We have a lot of specialists here. It's not just the three of us. There's a lot of people that specialize in unique things. So Terry's one of those people. His contact information's there. We will be sharing all these slides and providing you with all this information. So no need to jot down his name, but super interesting guy. And he will tell you very quickly if he thinks you're onto something that qualifies or not. The next one that I find is kind of hot right now. We've been doing a lot of these in any industry. This is called the lean process improvement. This is probably something that you won't be thinking about right now. I just wanted to show the depth of things to consider and why BC is a great place to start a business. So there's certain types of activities that you can do where a team like ours would come in to enhance efficiencies, right? So if your business is struggling with something, you bring our team in and they'll look at certain processes. There's government grants for this. So for example, it was an $8,500 fee. The government covers $7,000 of it. These are the program deliverables. I'll try to be a little brief here, but it's really helps your business understand leakage and where maybe you're not being super efficient and where you can squeeze out extra profits. And this is where it's probably nobody's eligible yet with these because you have to have been in business for a while. There is another, so before I go to the last grant, these are another two, go back please. These are another two specialists that we really like working with. So Maria is someone that she's an economist, she's a consultant. I jotted down market analysis. Luke was speaking in general to understand your market, understand who you're selling to. There's going to be a lot of learning in this market. There's going to be a lot of struggle, a lot of pivot, a lot of fail, a lot of understanding, like who are we selling to, how are we selling. Someone like Maria, she gets government grants and is often engaged to analyze new markets and understand the government, like where we should focus our efforts on. So she's someone that if the Pacific Seaweed Growers Association gets a lot of questions and a lot of struggles around one issue, that's a place where you can voice some of those comments, and then they might come to us or figure out answers, and Maria's one of those people. The reason I put Jay on this slide, he's a Lean Sigma 6 black belt. So he's a master of that process improvement and finding leakage in your business and optimizing your operations. So I just wanted to highlight these two people. And then quickly, in like a minute, another grant that's hot right now that we're getting a lot of emails internally to kind of keep top of mind is this Canada Youth Employment Skills Program. So I just wanted to share that Canada likes investing in our people, in our communities. So there's a lot of opportunities if you're growing a business here to leverage that involvement. So you're not alone. If there's things that you're struggling with and just saying, I just can't get over that hump, reach out to us. There's potentially grants, potentially it's business structuring, potentially it's just connecting you with the right people, brainstorming together. So that's the point I wanted to get across in my little section. And we're here to support you. Luke is going to send out some information about stuff he went over, as well as Dallas. Yes, you are. And today's slides. I wanted to highlight the Pacific Seaweed Growers Association. We're going to be collaborating a lot with them throughout this process, just learning and understanding what your needs are as you raise questions and are just navigating through this industry. And thank you for attending. We didn't leave much time for questions, but you have all our contact information. We're across Canada. If we're not the right fit, we'll find someone for you in your area. I understand there's a lot of international people logging on. I don't know if that's just to hear what BC is up to, or if that's more curiosity around investing in BC and starting a business in BC. So any type of conversation, we're happy to listen, learn together, and we just want to explore the space as much as you do.
Thank you, MNP panel, for sharing such a wealth of information from starting off from scratch. What I learned from this presentation is the team at MNP is there to take you wherever your business goes from start to finish. So if you're interested in starting a business in the seaweed sector or another sector, I think these are the guys that you want to talk to and get started with. I think what we'll do is I will save the chat here, and in a follow-up email, I could ask the MNP team to address those questions and send it out to everyone who registered for our session today.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Is there a lot?
There are a few, yeah, there's a few.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
and I have a page full, so that's good.
Yeah, well, you're running a business too.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great. Hey guys, I just want to thank you so much. The festival would not be where it is. It would not have happened without the support of MNP. I'm so grateful that that you're part of this, and also that you're excited to support the growth of the seaweed sector.
Well, let's give Peter Van Dongen another shout out for being the real linchpin and the real team player here.
Yay, Peter.
All together. Thank you very much, Peter.
And such a wonderful human, just a wonderful human. Yeah.
110%. All right, thank you very much.
That's great. I welcome everybody to join us on
Thanks,
our
everybody.
next session that starts in 4 minutes with Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson from Newchownath Seafood will be sharing stories of First Nation governments interacting directly with industry. And that session is starts in 4 minutes.